Alright, so we're doing a hangout plus Q&A today, so let me know if you have any questions. What do you think of intersectional vegans? I think the idea of intersectionality is great, it's beautiful, I love it, but I think what it has turned into is not healthy necessarily. So I think the meaning has changed throughout the years. I think intersectionality as an idea is great, but it's how you use it. Like I said, unfortunately, I think it's changed throughout the years and it's become something that I don't think it was meant to be. But I think it's great that there are activists that are doing activism in all different areas to fight against all the different injustices that exist at the moment. Yeah, that's all I have to say. To be honest, I don't have much to say about this because I love the idea, but it's just I don't ever come across someone who identifies as an intersectional vegan or activist that I feel like I align with their values. That's how I feel. Palm oil and people eating Oreos, is it actual indirect harm? I haven't seen anything that will convince me that palm oil is worse than any other vegetable oil when it comes to destroying natural habitat and harming animals, etc. in the process. So I'm not convinced that palm oil is any worse than soybean oil or rice oil or anything else. So I understand that it's a controversial topic, and I also understand that many vegans choose to avoid palm oil, and I can respect that. I personally don't. I don't avoid it because I believe that palm oil is worse than other oils. So in my opinion, palm oil is the same as any other oil. And if you like to eat Oreos, you should eat it not because it's got palm oil. It wouldn't make it non-vegan. So again, I haven't seen any research or any evidence that the process is any worse than harvesting or growing any other vegetable oil. I saw a video from Vegan Gains and it really got me thinking, do you think I should stop being friends with all the non-vegans in my life? Well, I haven't seen that video from Vegan Gains that you're referring to, I don't think. I don't think that you should do that unless you decide that that's the best thing for you. I do have non-vegan friends and family members and I do still socialize with them, but I have very clear boundaries with them. So that's working for me at the moment, and that might change, but it may not be working for you. So if you are able to just set boundaries with them so that, for example, when they hang out with you, they eat vegan food and you're okay with that, then you can keep them in your life. And if that doesn't work for you, then you want to cut them out of your life, that's also fine. I don't think that someone else can tell you what to do about these things, because it should really come from your own heart and you should be convinced yourself that that's the right thing for you. Someone said we want people to like us, not hate us. We want to make friends, not enemies. That's a personal value to you, because I don't care about people liking me or hating me. I do what I think is right and what I feel is right, and the whole world might love me for it or hate me for it, but it doesn't affect me. So when it comes to veganism, I understand that some people are worried that they're gonna end up with no friends, or people are gonna mock them or bully them, or they're just gonna feel like they're not popular, and that might affect the way that they advocate for animals or the way they do their activism. But I think that's just a personal thing. It's not something that applies to all vegans or all animal rights activists. I know many people like myself that don't give a fuck about what people think of them. When I set boundaries with my non-vegan friends, I am very clear on what those boundaries are, and I explain to them what they are. And if a friend turned around and said, I don't want to agree to that, it will be very easy for me to cut them out of my life, because that's a value that is very close to my heart, and there is no way I'm going to go against my own values and disrespect my own values, which will be a big fuck you to the animals. But another person might be feeling like they need that big social life, or they need to have specific people in their life, they need to have family in their life or certain friends in their life, and therefore they are willing to go against their own values and they are okay with that, or they need to be liked because otherwise that would affect them. So these are personal things, and it doesn't apply to all animal rights activists. But veganism is not about making friends or making enemies or being liked or not. Veganism is just taking a stance against animal cruelty and animal exploitation. And then the next step after that would be to become an animal rights activist, which is where you speak up for the victims. So if you think about other social justice movements, if you look at someone who is a feminist and an activist, or someone who speaks up about gay rights or whatever it might be, they are very clear about their boundaries as well, and they are not going to go back on those values that they're strongly convinced on because of social discomfort or anything like that. Unfortunately, when it comes to the animals, even vegans still don't see animals the same way as they would with victims of any other injustice. So animals always get a different treatment, even from vegans. So animals always come second, always come last, and they don't get the same treatment as, you know, like if you were talking about human victims, they would be treated differently. Animals are still not seen as individual victims, and therefore many vegans are willing to go back on the values that they speak up about when it becomes a little bit uncomfortable in social settings for them, or when it comes to their loved ones and their partners and their families. That's something that I have come across quite a lot, actually. How to be vegan living with parents? I would imagine that if you're old enough that you are sending a message here, you're old enough to have a conversation with your parents and tell them that these are your values. Your values are that you're against animal exploitation, you want to take a stance on it, and you want to be active, and you want to stop supporting these industries that exploit and abuse and kill animals, and you basically want to be vegan. You could also show them documentaries and videos that probably made you go vegan, and you can have conversations with them, but understand that just because you're ready to see the truth and make change, they may not be ready. So don't be too disappointed if they are going to disagree with you on this and they're not going to be willing to have a conversation. But you have the right to be vegan, and the way I recommend that you do it is that you just ask them to prepare food for you that you can be eating as a vegan. For example, if the family eats animal products every day, there's usually, you know, something on the side like rice or pasta or veggies or salad, and ask them to maybe make that separate so that you can just eat that. If you're old enough to be able to prepare your own food, I recommend that you do that. And if you can do some kind of work so that you can become a little bit financially independent, if you're not working yet and if you're very young and you're in school and you're studying, I still recommend that you try to make a little bit of money so that you're financially independent, so that you can buy your own produce and you can do your own shopping. And next time you want to buy shoes, you can go and buy a vegan version of what your parents would otherwise buy you, for example. So yeah, that's my advice. Do you think it makes a difference that in our presence, our friends won't have any animal products, but knowing they will continue to do it when we are away? I know it does make a difference to us, and of course the message is sent to them about our values. Thanks. Do you think it makes a difference? Well, it does make a difference. Obviously, you're right. We know that they're going to do it when we're not there. The difference that it makes is, one, it makes them think, because you're very serious about these values. You're not just saying it. You're not saying I'm against exploitation and then you sit at the table while they're paying for the exploitation, because that would be sending mixed messages. You're standing behind your values. And then the second thing is, if that friend was going to otherwise eat a burger made of animal flesh and cow's milk, is now going to buy a vegan version of it. So for that meal, they're not paying for animals to be tortured and killed. That's the difference. It's a very tiny difference to that individual victim. You're right, they're gonna go home and they're going to continue how they live. Sometimes doing this might make your friends think about it more deeply, and they might be like, after a short period of time, they might be more open to veganism and they may want to have a conversation about it. They make change, but sometimes it might take years and years. They may never go vegan. So that's why I said it really comes down to that individual, whether they're okay with the fact that, sure, their friends don't use any animal products when they're hanging out with them, but then they go home and they continue to support these industries. Someone might not be okay with that. So I don't know what else to say. I think the difference that it makes is those two things that I said, which are not huge differences. Got any advice on how to do outreach tomorrow at the Cube? Just speak up for the animals the way that you would want someone to speak up for you if you were in their position, meaning do not dilute the message, don't beat around the bush, just be direct with people, be honest, and hold them accountable for their actions. Don't try to be too nice and too polite for the sake of being liked or for that person to respect you. We're not on the street to get respect from people or to be liked from people. We are speaking up for the victims of the biggest injustice ever existed. So speak up for them like they deserve it. And I'm not saying be rude and be aggressive. I'm just saying hold people accountable. For example, if someone says, after talking to you for 5-10 minutes, if they say, all right, I'm convinced I'm going to start eating less meat or I'm going to go vegetarian, don't let them off the hook. Don't just let them go and feel good about that. Hold them accountable and tell them that that's not good enough. I think that would be the quickest advice I can give you. Should I feel really bad because I got my dog from a breeder rather than a shelter before I was vegan? No, you shouldn't feel bad, because by feeling bad, you're not helping yourself or the dog. I think you have done many things before going vegan that you wouldn't do today. So you probably didn't know better, or maybe you did, but you were too lazy to make change. Doesn't matter, but that happened before you went vegan. So I know many people that did that. In fact, I did that myself in 2011. I went into a pet store and I purchased a dog, and I had the option to go to a shelter. I just didn't know about these things because that was before I went vegan. So of course, when I look back, I feel maybe some guilt for doing that, but I know that me feeling guilty is not going to help me or the dog or anyone else. So no, you shouldn't feel bad at all. You should just try to speak up for animals now that you know better, and you should try to create change in this world. That's what you should do, in my opinion, because we need more people to wake up and not only be vegan, but we need more people to be animal rights activists. So that's what you should focus on. What do you think about the non-vegan medicines that the dermatologist prescribes you? Well, my position on medication is that, because most medications are not vegan. They were either tested on animals, or on top of that, they have animal products in them. My position on medicine is that you only take it when you really need to. So you only do it when there is no other practical or possible solution or treatment for your condition or for your illness or whatever it might be. You brought up dermatologist specifically, so I would say if that happened to me, I would ask myself, do I really need this treatment? Is it just because I don't like the look of my skin, or is it causing me a lot of problems? And is it affecting my day-to-day life? Is it affecting me to be a functional human being? That's the only time that I would take it. Are dairy products animal cruelty? Dairy and egg products are just as bad as meat products. Many people think that if they stop eating meat, then that's enough for the animals. But what happens in the dairy industry and the egg industry is just as bad. What happens to these animals is that they are being constantly tortured and raped, and they are being ripped away from their moms, from their families, and they are going to be killed. You might think that in the dairy industry, nobody's getting killed, so what's the problem? But these animals do get killed. In order for you to have a piece of cheese or to have a glass of cow's milk, You are the reason why a cow got raped repeatedly and then their baby was taken away from them. The baby was sent to the slaughterhouse if the baby was male, and then the mother is going to eventually end up in a slaughterhouse because they're going to, at some point, they're going to not be able to get pregnant anymore, to produce milk anymore, and that's what's going to happen to them. And same in the egg industry. So just remember that the dairy industry and the egg industry are just as bad as the meat industry. What's your opinion on horseback riding, not only for competitions? As an animal rights activist, again, I'm against all forms of animal exploitation, including horseback riding, including riding elephants, including riding camels or any other animal that people pay to ride. It doesn't matter whether it's for competition or not. Animals do not need to be ridden by humans. They don't need to be tortured and whipped and treated like objects. So yeah, I'm completely against it, and vegans do not ride animals or use animals for any kind of entertainment. Alright, I'm gonna wrap this up. Much love everyone, and take care.